Good morning, good evening, whatever time you're listening, and welcome to another episode of The Practical People. I am very excited to have the return of my very first guest on the show, special effects master, Mr. Shannon Shea. Shannon, thank you so much for coming back on the show yet again. I'm so glad to have you back.
Hey, thank you for having me, Chris. I really, it's been a while since I've done a podcast, so I'm actually excited to be here and to talk about whatever is on your mind today, sir.
Well, as always, it's practical effects, but I thought we would do the show a little different since, I've had you on a few times and I've asked the general...
Right.
Yeah, the general questions.
Everyone knows the same stupid stories. I'm not going to talk about the spitter again. Let's talk about something else.
Yeah, well, I've been working as a freelance, kind of a practical effects artist, kind of a mix of practical effects and working in, the Adobe world and creating fun stuff, working with some miniatures, creating my own movie, which is almost done and took a hell of a lot longer than I thought it was going to. And you've been hard at work. You've been doing some stuff for Disney, which I know you can't talk a lot about, but it's it involves something that was in the news with robot stunt people. And you also worked on the Netflix adaptation of Lost in Space, which, interestingly enough, the robot you created for that got kind of like a fan following from women who thought it was sexy, which
is very strange, but yes, we should talk about all that. Yes.
And you're also, I'm sure you've been working on your own projects. You've been painting, and so I figured, let's just have a conversation about the state of the art and what maybe we feel we've learned that's interesting that we can take with us into the future. But I'll start with you. I've already blabbed a bunch before the show about what I've been thinking, but do you have anything that you'd like to start with?
Yeah, I first of all, how can I say this? It's show business. The way I look at show business, it's kind of like a party. And I'm sure that a lot of people would go, "Oh, it is a party." I think that wasn't it? Director Terry Gilliam said that motion pictures are the byproduct of Hollywood. But after being at the party for so long, every now and then it's you look at yourself and go, you know what, I think it's time to leave. So even though and by saying that I mean leave Hollywood. I'm not saying about leave motion pictures. I'm just saying leaving Hollywood. So my wife and I, we sold the house and we moved back to the Gulf Coast where we're both originally from. And it's interesting because I have already met with the Mississippi Film Board down here, and they are elated that I am here. I have already been to the University of Southern Mississippi, and I've given a talk to the students there. And it's amazing that there's actually a film program, less than a mile away from the Gulf of Mexico. When I was growing up, I had literally had to go to California to get any kind of film, education. And now it's spreading. And that is what gives me hope. What gives me hope is that it's no longer the, West Coast monopoly and the smaller, little brother on the East Coast, meaning New York. Now you have people shooting a heck of a lot in Atlanta. And I was surprised to find out that they are still, irregardless of what Disney and ABC thought about, putting a cap on the tax breaks in Louisiana, people are still shooting in Louisiana. So what gives me hope is that there seems to be an explosion of motion picture production happening all over the country and all over the world. And to me, I welcome that. I think it's great to have so many different voices, so many different visions. And listen, they're all not everything's going to be Orson Welles' Citizen Kane.
No.
And I'm sure that a lot of these filmmakers are going to learn the hard way how difficult it is to mount a motion picture production. And by the way, the film students at the University of Southern Mississippi are shooting on 16 millimeter. And I just started laughing, and I went, oh boy, you really are going to understand that now every time you press that button on the camera, it's like a gasoline, it's like a gas pump, just rattling off the dollars. It's like but I said, but it's beautiful because it teaches you responsibility. That's what it teaches you, and that's part of kind of what I think is kind of missing right now is the responsibility. I mean, it's so easy to, get yourself a bunch of, data cards and build your big, your big memory. I don't know what you call it. There's a word for it. I can't think of it at this moment. But they build these big memory banks where they can store all the footage, and sometimes they don't even yell cut. They just keep shooting until they get what they want. And, you know what I'm saying? So it's a world of irresponsibility, and teaching kids responsibility is, I think it's going to make them better filmmakers. So that is all so super encouraging to me. I can't even tell you. It makes me happy.
Animator Chuck Jones called it having discipline.
Yes,
and that that was how he kept his cartoons fresh, was that he had to set up boundaries. And shooting on 16 millimeter film, to quote David Lynch, and I love doing David Lynch impersonations, by the way, so please forgive me, but he's like, every time you turn on the camera, it was like money running through it.
Well, it's true. I mean, listen, and so I asked him, I said, are you guys going as far as doing, flatbed, editing? And they were like, no, we just got all the film digitized, and then we just, cut it on our computers. And I'm like, well, again, I said, you haven't lived until you've done A/B rolling. I mean, that's something that I think everyone should have to do. And for those of you in the audience who don't know what it is and still have some curiosity left, A/B rolling is when you used to cut, you had what they call a work print. You'd get all your footage back, it would be a work print. And then you would literally sit down and you would cut that work print. But in order to send the film to the lab, you had to literally, anytime there was a cut, you had to have, it was like tracks, it was like audio tracks. So let's say you had, a shot that went on 1 second, right? So you had 24 frames. Mm-hmm. And the next shot was like 3 seconds, so it had 36 frames. So you'd have, on your A roll, you would have your 24 frames. On your B roll, you'd have 24 frames of what they called sound fill. So however, so you had these two, so literally, they were jumping back and forth between these two tracks. So the next clip that had 36 frames, that would be on your B roll, which means you had 36 frames of sound fill on your A roll. And so you had to have it match to the frame, because otherwise you'd get flash frames and black frames. It was a mess. I mean, and it just took forever editing. I don't know how. I can't imagine cutting Cleopatra. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how the hell do you do what? But they did it, and I just think it's amazing. So when you go through all of that agony, you tend to come out, as you say, with a little more discipline about shooting, and not that I think listen, I'm not calling for, the return of horseback. I mean, we are where we are. And may you never have to do A/B rolling. I'm just saying that it's one of those lost things that will never come back, that agony. Because there's other agonies, I know. I mean, when you lose all your data and, you're sitting there scrambling, or, your computer takes a crap and, your entire cut is gone, and you're constantly having to save however many, just in case you go, oh gosh, I've sorry, there's a plane going over my head.
Oh, that's all right. We can't hear it.
Good. I said, that you have to save these things because you realize that, the cut you did 2 times earlier is actually better than where you are now, and you just don't want to have to go back, put everything back.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of that, but but by and large, I have to say, it really makes me happy that I can look around and see that it has broken loose. You know, I mean, I'm not going to quote him because his quote was kind of a flip, but you know, Francis Ford Coppola predicted it was going to happen during the shooting of Apocalypse Now.
Really?
Right? Oh yeah, he did. I'm going to let you look that up.
Okay.
And by the way, and for those of you who look up that quote and they're going to go, "Oh boy, that's kind of a shitty thing to say," just know that I didn't say it. Francis Ford Coppola did. You can send all your letters to Francis Ford Coppola. So anyway.
I'll look for that one. Well, you know,
Yes.
it's interesting because even for me, I first started trying to make films using DV tape. So I never worked with film. I worked with film cameras when I was trying to do photography. And boy, when the first digital camera came out and I worked with that, I was like, no, this is never going to replace film. But they've gotten so much better. But in terms of making a film, whether it be digital or on film, and I'd imagine it's even more agonizing with film, you know, for me, having a digital camera, I shot my movie on a 7D, was a great way to make your first film because it taught me the limitations of the camera, which I had to work around. And, you know, while all of these other people I knew were getting really expensive, you know, 4K cameras, Red Epics, all that stuff.
Right.
And they were doing great work. And I was trying to do the best work I could with this 7D camera, which when it first came out was all the rage. But man, you know, you see what the limitations are, and it really makes you appreciate the getting the good equipment more, because
Right.
you know, you get these people saying, well, you can make a movie on your cell phone, and yes, you can make a movie on your cell phone, but the more you learn, the more nuance you understand, the more you appreciate why the good equipment does matter. Yes, you can point and shoot and tell your story, but I think like a musician, you referenced music before. You know, my daughter has a $100 violin that she's learning on. I think as she gets better, she's going to yearn for the Stradivarius because she'll understand better because of the limitations. She'll understand better what she can do if she, you know, really gets into her art or the craft of it, however you want to put it. The other thing that's really kind of agonizing is, you know, you're learning as you go. So by the time you get to the end of your film and you've improved and you look at the first stuff you did and you go, oh no, do I have to reshoot that?
Well, I mean, and I have to say something. This is the curse of being any kind of an artist, because I think that happens to me on anything I do, whether it be a painting or a sculpture or I shoot something and or come up with an effect and do something and I go, wow, whoo, you know, I'm a genius, you know, and then a month later I look at that and go, oh God, what the hell was I thinking? And I look at things and go, wow, boy, can people see how crappy this is, or that this looks all dialed in? And I think one of the worst things in the world for any artist is what I call getting caught. And this happens a lot when you're writing a screenplay. I mean, and I've written many, and it's interesting because like you'll be writing a screenplay and you're moving along and you're thinking, wow, this is all coming together and I'm really excited, and then you find yourself having to fudge something, and you think, well, you know, this is 120 pages and I'm only fudging a little bit on page 45. Like, is it going to matter? Nah, come on. You know, so much of it's great. And then you let someone read it and they go, gosh, on page 45, it really feels like you just dialed that in. And you go, shit. Sorry. But, you know, it's a family show. But, you know, because you get caught, you know, and that's the thing is, but so what happens is it's bad because, you know, you instantly go, ugh. But it's good because you realize I can't just phone it in. You know, you can't, you know, and it makes you appreciate other things as well. You know, I remember when I was teaching special effects makeup at cinema makeup school, a lot of my students had no interest. They just had to take the class to get their certificate because it was a trade school. And I would tell them, I go, listen, even if you never, ever do this at all, I guarantee by the time you're finished, next time you're watching a television show or you're watching a movie and you see someone there completely covered in prosthetics, you will know how uncomfortable they are and how much work it took to get just to that point. And it will increase your appreciation of what you're looking at. And that's true. It's like once you know how hard something is to do, that's, but then ironically, that's what people say, oh, wow, experts make it look easy. Well, it's true. It's like a good actor. It's like, they just seem so, it just seems so easy. They just go up there and open their mouths and, genius comes out. It's like, no, there's a lot of training that goes into that, It's a lot of training. So it's a little ironic, I suppose, because, you want people to know how much work goes into something so they can appreciate it. But at the same time, a really good artist knows how to make it look simple.
Oh, yeah. Well,
does that make any sense at all?
No, it did. And I wanted to add to that. You'd mentioned, doing something and saying, I'm a genius. And then, a month later you go, oh man, I mean, I do that all the time, although I become very wary of the word genius, especially when other people see my work and go, you're a genius. I mean, I appreciate the compliment. It's really nice, but I'm just wary of it because it's not, I don't even know how to really explain it. I guess I've been told by people that I'm a genius sometimes, and I realize after the fact it wasn't because they really thought I was a genius. It was because they wanted something.
Well, that's true. And again, genius is a sliding scale, because sometimes what they're saying is, they're not saying that you're a genius because what you've done is so inventive and cutting edge. Sometimes you're a genius just because you just saved them the headache of trying to figure out what they were going to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what are we going to do? Oh, crap, what are we going to do? And then you walk in and they go, oh, Chris just came up with this thing. He's a genius because now I can scratch that problem off my list. Woohoo, someone else did it. He's a genius. And the other thing, too, is that, artists, listen, it's what comes along with being an artist, and I don't care how humble and shy and reserved you are, they all come with egos. And I know because I've supervised large groups of them with such a diverse, with diverse personalities, let's just say, but they all have egos. And so when someone tells you you're a genius, the chances of you wanting to work with that person again is higher than someone who just calls you an idiot all day long. And that's again, it's the miracle of Jim Cameron, because people want to work with Jim, even though he doesn't call them geniuses constantly, because he doesn't. Well, listen, I don't know. I haven't worked with Jim since Terminator 2. But maybe he called everyone a genius. But at least on that show, there was not a lot of, hey, you're a genius. But what it is you respect him because when you watch the film, you realize that you were pushed to do the best work that was within you at that moment. You know what I'm saying? You were pushed to do amazing work. And that's why a lot of artists, including me, would love to hear, hey, Shannon, that's great, blah, 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 blah. Hey, do you want some constructive criticism? And if I'm in the mood, I'll go, yeah, let's hear it. And I'll go, you know what? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And sometimes they go, yeah, I thought about that, and this is the reason why I didn't do that. And they go, oh, yeah, I see that. And sometimes they'll say something, I'll just go, oh, you know what? I hadn't considered that. And to me, that's learning, So, yeah, it does hurt when someone says, hey, do you think maybe about this? Yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world to hear, but boy, is it helpful. Which isn't to say you shouldn't run around looking for people to tell you you're an idiot all the time, because that doesn't help anything either, But, you want to balance it. You really want to balance all the, compliments with some, and that's the thing too, is for me personally, how do I say this? There are people who I trust, friends I've known for years who, if I just said, "Hey, do you mind giving me a critique here?" They know that they can say it to me. I'm not going to cry or throw a fit, call them assholes, all that other stuff. I'm going to listen to what they have to say, and and I will take something away from it. And what I've learned as someone who is in the business of critiquing young artists is that the minute someone gets defensive is when they shut off the learning part of their brain. So I try not to do that. When someone says, "Hey, Shannon, look at this anatomy here. It looks kind of funky," there might be an impulse in me to go, "Well, that's because of the way this arm is bent, and the muscles, they contract and they stretch and they do this and that, and that's why it looks weird," to justify the fact that I might have, called it in a little bit. So, but it's better to not get defensive and listen to it. And yes, it hurts. It really hurts. Sometimes, ooh boy, sometimes it really hurts. But it's growth. Growing, that's what they call them, growing pains. They don't call them growing pleasures. I've never had a growing pleasure. I'd like to have a growing pleasure, but it's always a growing pain I get. So, it's just kind of the nature of it.
Well, to anybody, just going back for anybody who called me a genius sincerely, I'm not ripping you, by the way, but I think you put it well, because it's I think if you open yourself up to all the compliments, you're actually opening yourself up to all the stings as well, which can, kind of shut you down. Like, oh, I don't have to listen to you because this person over here said I'm a genius. And for me, the most satisfying work that I do is, obviously we all appreciate it when, people see what we've done. And like you said, they, you see the relief on their face, like, oh, I didn't think it could be that good. You actually exceeded my expectation, or you saved me, or something like that. That's always very gratifying. But I always love it when I get notes back, because I'm trying to, help somebody with their vision. And if they're just kind of going like, well, I feel so lucky to get this, I'll take whatever I can get. They may over time feel dissatisfied. I want to be able to hear what they have in mind, and for my own ego, be able to say, I got them what they wanted. I got them what was in their head. I didn't just make it all about me. And now they're really happy because their vision has been fulfilled. That to me is far more satisfying than just being told, oh, you're a genius, just do whatever. That's
right.
Because then I'll just do whatever. And like you said, it probably could be better. It could,
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, this is going to sound terrible to say this, but everything could be better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, everything could be better. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are and what you've done. I'm sure that if you were to talk to, Jordu Shao, or to, Steve Wang, or any artist, Mikey Rotella, any of these sculptors that are lauded and rightly so. May I say, rightly so. I'm sure that if you talk to them, there are times when they think to themselves, boy, I should have probably spent another hour on this, But sometimes you got to walk away. The other thing is that I've known people, especially writers. I've known writers who spend their lives with one story.
Ooh.
Because they keep going, oh boy, I got to go back and fix this, and oh boy, I got to fix that, and part of art is realizing it's never finished. I mean, I know that there were times that Frank Frazetta would go back and paintings that he had finished and were hanging, he would take down and work on them a little more here and there. It was never completely done, and that's okay. To me, it's like dropping oh gosh, this is going to be a horrible analogy. It's like dropping a chum marker, right, in the water. You're chumming the water, and you go, okay, this is where I am now, and you drop a chum marker. This is where I am now. So your art becomes like, this is where you are at this moment, under these circumstances. This is where you are. And what I find is great, leaving a project, and trying not to go back and revisit it, even though I I'm going to qualify that in a second. But it's great to go back and look at old artwork that I've done and gone like, whoo boy, gosh, but I can see the growth.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I spent all of my time going back and retouching paintings I did 10, 20 years ago, I wouldn't see the growth as much because I'd keep messing with them, Whereas if I just, leave the chum marker where it is, I can go back and go, wow, in 1995, this was my skill set. And sometimes I surprise myself and go, that's a lot. This is held up better than I thought it would. Now, sometimes I look at things and go, geez, what the? Where did this anatomy come from? Wow.
Sometimes I look at stuff and go, hey, I don't think I'm that good now. Like there are things that
exactly. Sometimes you go, wow, I must have really been inspired. How did this happen? I agree with you. There are those moments too. I was going to say something. As I said, I'm going to tell. Oh, I did have to go back and fix my Tyrannosaurus. So I want to be clear about that. I'm not saying you can't go back and fix things because, I was taking, some forced perspective shots of my Tyrannosaurus Rex in my backyard. And I noticed, like, one of his arms, there's no paint on it. Just this pink silicone is showing. And it's like, and it's torn. And I'm like, how the heck did that happen? I'm thinking, well, I did move it across the United States of America. Well, that's probably how it happened. And he had like a big smudge on his belly and all that stuff. So I figured, well, I got to christen my new workshop with something. I might as well be fixing my Tyrannosaurus Rex. So I brought him into the workshop and I cleaned them all up. And so then I'm repairing them and I'm thinking, you know what? I have all my paints. Why not make some changes to some things that are, have been bugging me? Mm-hmm. And I went back and I, cleaned things up and tightened some things up and made it look a lot better. And now I look at it and I'm really happy. I walk in the room. I was walking in the room last night and going, wow, you know what? It really looks a lot better. God bless me for taking the time and not just going, well, whatever, So I do believe in repairing things and maintaining things. I'm just talking about when you're doing a painting of something and you put it there and then 5 years later you come back and go, oh God, look at the way that leg is, and repaint it and you go, woohoo, hey, I'm a genius. Look, so. Yeah.
Well,
speaking of that,
you
go
did,
ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say you didn't do the Tyrannosaurus that long ago. You were sculpting that. I think it's
a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So it's not like you were going back 10, 20 years and doing that. So and I think pieces like that you repair, you make little upgrades. It's a display piece and it's it's one of my favorite things that I've seen you make. I know it was a personal thing, but it's really cool. Oh, thank you. I will tell you that it's one of my favorite pieces too. And it sounds, I know it sounds weird to hear someone say that, but for me, it really, it's my love letter to days gone by when it comes to dinosaurs, and a time that I don't think will ever come back. And that's fine. I'm not going to sit here and gripe and tell everyone that they need to go back and think that a Tyrannosaurus Rex looked like the 1933 King Kong. But for those of us that didn't know any better and were 3 years old and saw King Kong for the first time, and that's what our first impression of a Tyrannosaurus Rex was, for those of us who were glued to the TV set in 1975 watching Land of the Lost and seeing these dinosaurs walking around in these ancient cities and going, whoa, that is so cool. For us, that really was, ignited the imagination, because it wasn't simply a documentary about how cool dinosaurs were, and hey, listen, I love those too, but it really took dinosaurs, for me anyway, and brought them into a world of fantasy and storytelling that used them correctly, in my opinion. Well, something else I'll add too is something that I think that modern audiences don't really take the time to consider, but it's the beauty of art being a product of its time as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that
absolutely,
a lot of movie reboots or when somebody will take a novel that was written maybe in the 1950s or the 1940s, or even, it's like I've never been the Steven Spielberg War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise just didn't do it for me, because I thought, I would really just love, if you're going to make a movie, I would love to see it be a Victorian era alien invasion story. I think that would be a lot of fun, and just acknowledge, like, yes, we know that, the novel got things wrong, and things that people believe back then are not things that we know are not true now, but just to respect the art as a product of its time and enjoy it for that, rather than trying to, update it, modernize it, and then it doesn't work, because again, the story can only exist as a product of the artist and the times. So
no, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, can you imagine trying to set Moby Dick in the 21st century?
Right, yeah. And
how do you do that?
And yet, Moby Dick is about so much more than just hunting the whale. It's,
Oh yeah. Oh, I know. I'm talking about those levels of implication and subtlety in it. I don't think people, and I'll be honest. So let's talk about War of the Worlds for 2 seconds, because
please, yes.
for those of you who have ever been to my my YouTube channel, which I rarely ever upload anything to these days. But I years ago I put up it's misspelled. This is the granddaddy of giant robot movies, and it was a project that I came up with back in, I want to say, 1995, called Automatons, and the idea. And listen, I don't care. And if Sean Cunningham wants to say something ugly to me, he's more than welcome to contact me and say as many ugly things as he wants. But I actually had a meeting with Sean to design a robot for a film that they were doing called Widowmaker. Now, this was not what became the Harrison Ford. This is about a movie about a bunch of army brats who are paintball enthusiasts that steal, if you can imagine this, an army prototype robot, and they bring it out into the woods. They start shooting it with paintballs, and it arms itself and starts hunting them down one at a time in the woods. And I remember I'm reading the script and I'm going, this is so ludicrous. Like, it's like you go onto an army base and you stroll into where all the Jeeps are stored, and there's a big, there's a army prototype robot, and just because your dad is, a lieutenant in the army, you can drive off a base with a prototype robot that probably cost $20 million. And then the first thing you do is start firing a paintball gun at it. I mean, I just went, God, that's just such a ludicrous idea. I said, what would have been cooler is if you had a bunch of paintball enthusiasts that stumbled upon a old, abandoned Nazi robot lab. And then that sparked me into writing this script that took place in the 50s, where the conceit is the Nazis were able to cross the polar ice cap, and they were setting up a big, giant robot army that was going to march down from Canada into North America and destroy all the military building that was happening, like in Detroit and Michigan and all those, all those areas. It was going to go in and just start wiping everything out. And unfortunately, they get started, and they are automatons. They just go right back to their old programming, back into the 40s. But now it's like 1952, so it hasn't even been that long, So anyway, long story short, I'm shopping it around town, and every single producer is telling me the same thing. They're going, love it, absolutely love it. Can we set it in 1996? And I go, no, you can't. Why not? Because in my story, there was a whole scene where it was the Royal Canadian Mounted Police on horseback trying to fight giant robots out in the middle of the Canadian countryside. I said, now you give them one call and you're scrambling jets, you know what I'm saying? And and F-18 would take out something that was built in 1945, and you can say, well, it's a medal that only the Nazis had. Well, then you start adding conceit on top of conceit on top of conceit on top of conceit until the whole thing just gets muddy, which is then you have War of the Worlds, because instead Now he has to justify this. Now he has to justify that. And then one of my biggest problems with War of the Worlds was the removal of them arriving as meteors, giant meteors, instead of coming out of the ground, and they've been there forever. Wait, you mean all of the digging that has happened to put sewer pipes in and electronics in and fiber optics in, and no one ever went, ping, hey, Charlie, I just hit something. What the hell is this? No, and they're huge. It's like, I'm sitting there going, this makes zero sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, the Victorian version you're talking about makes sense. And I agree with something you said, even more so, which is because, you take a story and you throw it back to Victorian times, it's like, who really knows? Like, not everyone sits there and goes, well, in Victorian or Edwardian or whatever the heck it is, America, people just didn't do that sort of things. Or in Victorian England, this is what no one really knows. So you can, I mean, excuse me, I take that back. There are people who know. There are people who make it their entire lives to know. Mm-hmm. But in general, most people don't know or don't care. They just want a good yarn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they overlook things. They overlook lapses in logic. They overlook stuff, and it kind of, for me, it makes it like a vacation away from the 21st century. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, why not? I think it's great. I think it's cool, So, well, he had his chance. Maybe he'll do it again someday. Who knows?
Well, this is one of the reasons, too, why I kind of like schlocky cinema. While I'll enjoy a movie like Return of the Living Dead 3 or From Beyond or Robot Jocks, you kind of...
Robot Jocks is amazing. Go ahead.
You go into these areas where people go, they have to go like, okay, I accept that I'm going into a low budget movie, or I accept that this is, a ridiculous premise, but I'm here to have a good time, and these premises don't concern themselves with becoming convoluted. They just end up being like, okay, they get in robots and they fight, or
mm-hmm.
Your girlfriend's a zombie and you love her, but she won't stop eating your friends everywhere you take her. It's like,
right.
It becomes a way of, like you said, and for me, I like it as a creator too, because I'm a fairly decent screenwriter, but I there are times where my stories could use a little forgiveness, and I'm not the kind of person that wants to spend forever on a script. I'll spend as much time as it takes to make it good for the level of quality that I can make it on, or I don't want to create a film that's going to waste everybody's time. But at the same time, I'll never go like, this is going to be my Citizen Kane. It's not. I'm not making Citizen Kane. I enjoy working with miniatures and practical effects, and I enjoy, certain themes and values and storytelling that will always be there for every. Even if I'm not trying to put them in there, they show up.
Right.
But it's a vehicle for me to have fun and entertain people. And the worst is there's two things in a script that always kill me. And I was talking to Bill Oberst Jr. about this. Bill says, as an actor, the worst thing is when he's reading a script and suddenly says, okay, everybody gather around. I'm going to tell you what we're up against. Like, here comes the big piece of exposition. And the other thing is, like you said, the conceit upon conceit, where you have to start justifying, well, where did this come from? Why didn't a person just do this? Oh, and you have to convolute your story with all these explanations of why things are the way they are. And really what it comes down to is you haven't quite thought it through well enough. You need to take
exactly.
a little time.
And you were exactly right about that. When you, this is so weird. I had a writing teacher once who told me that I was not allowed to use adverbs. and she said, pick a better verb. Now, I will tell you that trying to write without an adverb is, especially a screenplay, is difficult because, first of all, screenplays are not meant to be literature. They're meant to be, they're meant to be blueprints. They're blueprints, and dialogue is very important, but, in terms of action and all that stuff, some of that stuff is better figured out on set when you have your location and you have your stunt guy and you have your special effects people and you can sit around and you can go, okay, this is how we're going to make this work, and sometimes, if you are a really good screenwriter and you can, put in moments of action and you can describe a fight between two people that doesn't feel like you're being just, mired down in words, then God bless you. That's great too. But what I was going to say about adverbs is the same thing I'm saying about that you're saying about story. It's like, you throwing in adverbs because you're lazy. He walked quietly. Well, he crept in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, to me, it shows someone that's in a rush, that isn't really thinking, that isn't, and those things used to drive me crazy. Like I would read screenplays that were just so poorly written. And I would remember just thinking to myself, how does it get like this? And then it occurs to me that it has nothing to do with the quality of the writing. What it really has to do with is the idea, whether or not a director gets the central idea of something and is going to bring something to it. If there are producers and actors and effects people that can see beyond what's on that written page, this is, I keep telling people, and if I've said this on your show before, I apologize, but I would be the greatest billionaire ever. Like, if I were a billionaire, the world would be a better place. And I say that because I would invest my money on really what I think is important social experiments. And one of them would be to take Plan 9 from Outer Space, take that script, Ed Wood script, don't change a word of it, but hire really good actors, right? Really, really good actors. Load it with great visual effects and just see if it flies. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Put $40 million into Plan 9 from Outer Space just to see if it really flies. Because I guarantee you, and I say I guarantee, I don't know, but my bet is that what was in his screenplay was a lot more ambitious than what he ended up with. Because if you think about it, it's kind of a cool idea, right? You have these aliens that want to take over the planet, so what do? They raise the dead out of the ground. And now they have this army of indestructible dead people that are coming out and attacking people. But, he had $5 to make his movie. Imagine that same movie where you have, it's like The Walking Dead, being controlled by aliens. It's like, wow, holy crud. And then, because I've read dialogue before in a script, and I've gone, huh? And then suddenly it's coming out of Liam Neeson's head, and you're going, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. He really brought it. So you wonder if, like I said, I think that that to me is a noble experiment. That's just how absolutely retarded I am. But to me, and that's why God sees to it that I don't have $1 billion, because that is to me is a noble. To me, that's a noble experiment.
I think it's a great one. I mean, the thing is when I write scripts, I've already casted like all the actors I could never afford in the roles, so I'm writing for those actors. If I'm writing for Sigourney Weaver, I'm writing for Kurt Russell. But
may I say something? I think that's good. I really, really do. And I know, who knows what? I mean, I can't tell you what any of the big screenwriters would tell you. What's his name, Robert McKee or whatever. They would probably tell you not to do that. But I think that for anyone that is writing characters and dialogue, and you are writing for a specific actor, you've seen that actor enough to kind of understand how they, in general, express themselves in movies. You understand their cadences. You understand. And so what happens is you end up writing for that character, and you see them in your head. The hard part is when suddenly you know there's no way in heck you're going to get that. And then what you don't want to end up with is someone imitating Sigourney Weaver or someone imitating Kurt Russell.
Oh, right.
Because then you're kind of screwed, right? Because then you're kind of like, then you have to adjust your vision and at least see what they bring to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I will tell you that when I wrote a script called Mr. BB. And again, and funny, I wrote it with Dennis Quaid in mind. So I literally wrote it thinking the entire time, Dennis Quaid, Dennis Quaid, Dennis Quaid, Dennis Quaid. So I'm shopping it around, trying to get actors involved, trying to get Mr. Quaid involved, and, no one's talking to me. My wife, Tracy, says to me, have you thought about giving this to Ernie Hudson? Well, I hadn't, because I was thinking Dennis Quaid.
Mm-hmm.
But because of Leviathan and working with Ernie and, being friends over the years, I sent him the script. And he wrote me back and said, I love it. So we started talking about it. And the more he was talking about it, the more I was thinking, oh, my God, Ernie. Yes, absolutely yes, Ernie. Now, unfortunately, the film never got made. This was 3 years ago. Ernie is now maybe a little too old to do the part. I can't imagine anyone else doing it now. That's my problem. Ernie was he was so great about everything. And we even shot pictures to try to, for the investors to kind of get them to loosen up their purse strings faster. I got him dressed up like a sheriff, and he looked amazing, just amazing.
I saw those pictures, yeah.
Yeah, and so you go from the one voice in your head that is, Sigourney Weaver and Kurt Russell, and then you get new voices in your head. And to me, the magic is when they bring something that you didn't even realize, and you go, holy crap, that's so cool. And that's why film to me is a collaboration.
Definitely.
I mean, for me,
and that's,
I think that's.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say that's also, I never tell the actors, who I'm writing in mind. I just give them the lines, and then it's wonderful to watch them take it and make it their own.
Right.
Because they'll bring things to it that you never expected, and that, and yes, it's a collaborative effort, and every new surprise that comes your way, you have to adjust. And, it's also, no matter how much you plan it, it becomes an intuitive process. Even people who get, their films overanalyzed on YouTube all the time. I've heard Stanley Kubrick be interviewed and say, no, it's intuitive. It's very much an intuitive thing. We're writing new pages on the set, and so. Well,
and by the way, I do every now and then. I will waste 20 or 30 minutes of my time and watch film analysts talk about movies, because listen, and I say waste time because it's so long. I mean, these videos are so long, but boy, they're interesting as hell. I mean, that guy, his name Rob Ager.
Oh yeah, Rob Ager. Oh yes.
Yeah. Oh, I love watching his analysis. He's so much fun, and just all this layers upon layers of stuff. I just think it's amazing. I love watching it. I mean, and there's sometimes he'll say things, and I go, really? I don't know about that. Yeah, but sometimes I think he's right on the money. And I say this to my wife all the time. I say, I don't think that every single thing that happens in a motion picture production is a conscious decision. I think a lot of it is subconscious. And then what happens is it takes someone like Rob to come out and go, well, if you look, you did this, you did this, you did. Yeah, should I tell the story? I don't know. It involves good friends of yours. I don't know if I should tell the story. I can't. I'll just put it in general terms. I was asked to read a script, and it was written by some mutual friends of ours. And I, at the end of reading the script, I told them what I thought it was, and they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of obvious." It hadn't even occurred to them. It hadn't even occurred to them. And if you need specifics, I'm sorry, folks. I just can't do this to my friends because I really love them. And
I did this to them as well. If we're talking about the same people, and we'll have to compare notes after the show is over.
Yes,
because
we will compare notes after the show. But it's one of those things that you're so close to something, and you have no idea what you're what your subconscious is a beast unto itself.
Well, it's like dream analyzing. It's you look at what you dream about and you go, well, what does that mean to me? And then if you kind of start saying things like, oh, well, really tigers make me think of this more than anything. Oh, of course, because of this. And then you start to put it together. The same thing does happen in storytelling. Absolutely. I have been saying that for years.
And I'll say this too. The opposite is also true. Where I will have a really weird dream, and I'll go, wow, I had this really weird dream, and I'll tell it to my wife, and I'll say, I think it means this, and she goes, no, it means this, and you go, oh yeah.
The people that know you're right.
Oh boy. Yeah, and then you think to yourself, okay, I was selling myself some BS. And that's not what it was about. Okay, you're right. Moving on. And the minute she says it, it's just like I can just feel something shift inside my little gut, and I kind of go, okay, you're right. All right, okay, next. That's that. Moving on.
Acknowledging the cognitive dissonance, for sure.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Speaking of moving on, I want to move this into the realm because we've hardly talked about effects at all. We've been talking about story.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I love it. Yeah. But yeah, I want to. Something interesting happened recently, and it's a little. This is a family show, so again, I'm gonna try and glaze over some of the more adult details, but.
Okay.
I came across this article on social media about these people that are making sex robots, essentially.
Okay.
And they are so creepy looking. And I was like, these things don't look like they would ever show you intimacy. They look like they'll murder you. This is like something out of a Chucky movie. And then I saw...
Oof.
What?
I'm like, oof. I made a noise.
And, anyway, I was, genuinely creeped out by the whole thing. And then I saw the new movie coming out, Alita Battle Angel, where they gave her these, she's a digital character, and they gave her these anime eyes, and some people were calling, oh, the eyes look really creepy and weird. And I was like, well, they're going with the anime, and again, the story is a product of Japanese culture, and my understanding is that they really stuck to that, and that, it may not be something that Western audiences are going to entirely understand. But one of the things I really noticed about the character was, they gave her these big eyes, and somehow it made it a little, like where these weird sex dolls, where they were trying to make them look as weird as possible, had this really creepy, uncanny valley thing going on. This character, with these oversized eyes, suddenly I was watching her move in the, the previews and the commercials and stuff. And even, she's a digital character. And I was thinking, well, she actually looks kind of endearing. And after a few minutes of watching, I don't really notice. And it made me realize something, and this also has to do with animation and that sort of thing. But I think that the quest for super realism, and I'm noticing this with a lot of effects in a lot of movies, where before, a space flight had like a stylized aspect to it. And now they've got these computers that have render engines that can, figure out the physics of the light and the mass of the object and the, the gravity and all this stuff. There was something about taking a step back from the realistic that made me accept the character more. And it made me wonder, has this quest for realism, is it kind of taking some of the fun out of the art? Because I'm noticing a lot of these movies that strive for realism, they all look the same to me. I'm not as excited by them. I'm disinterested.
Boy. You have put your foot in a big pile of poo that I am now going to help you with. Okay, first of all, we have two things to cover here. Let's talk first about Alita Battle Angel and why I think you are not as put off by it. And I will say it in 2 words: Snapchat. Every young woman in America has made her eyes look giant. It's basically Snapchat the movie. So you have been conditioned subconsciously, because I'm sure you've seen pictures of your daughter with her big Snapchat eyes. I've seen pictures of my daughter with her big Snapchat eyes. It's just, it's become a level of acceptance. You accept it because, who's not, cribbing on social media. You look at yourself and, you're now presenting yourself to the world more times than not in the best way you can. You take a picture selfie and you go, ooh, no, and you get rid of it. You take another selfie and you go, take another selfie, you hold the camera back and, you get the light just right and then, you present it to the world.
Our social media presence is an avatar that
exactly.
we can fill with whatever we choose.
Exactly, and it is really become like an Aldous Huxley novel. It's not real. It's not the reality of life. It's the reality of life that you're presenting to people. That's the reality. It's not real. It's it's enhanced real. And that's fine. And everyone accepts it. I saw on Facebook this person's doing that. Isn't that amazing? And that person could be depressed or lonely, and you would have no idea, because on their social media they are the most popular human being on the planet. And oh my gosh, look where they went, look what they ate. It's. I think it's me. I find it scary. Now that's the one thing. Now let's put what you said about realism. That to me is the crux of the problem. And I literally, 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago, I did a talk at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles. And they asked me, they said, hey, we want you to come do a talk. Do you have any subjects you'd like to talk about? And I said, well, I know what you want. You want me to talk about the making of Jurassic Park, which I'm happy to do. But in your museum, you have Charles Knight paintings on display, and you have some older representations of dinosaurs. I'd kind of like to talk about dinosaurs and how they were presented throughout time. And they went, oh, yes, please do. So I did just that. I started off way back, when dinosaurs were first discovered in the 19th century, and showed the reconstructions that everyone kind of like guffaws at now. Oh my gosh, crystal darkness, or whatever it's called. Well, they were so stupid. They thought that the iguanodon, that was his tooth, but it turned out to be his claw. And they were so dumb in the 19th century, and blah blah blah, and all that stuff. Well, the bottom line is that we hit Jurassic Park, which were the most realistic dinosaurs ever put on screen. And suddenly, every Tyrannosaurus Rex you see looks related to that Tyrannosaurus. I mean, I'll be dipped in you-know-what, because you can change the color a little bit, you can change this a little, but by and large, oh my God, it's Mike Tursic's Tyrannosaurus Rex. Mm-hmm. It's Mike Tursic's Tyrannosaurus Rex. So what happens is everyone goes, well, that's the way it looked. So it begs this question. Tell me when you got back from 65 million years ago, because you weren't there. And what I say is this: pick up a plastic Halloween skeleton and draw the person that is based on. You can't. You can't. You can assume a bunch of crap. And scientists, I just got a book for Christmas, which I'm not going to mention the title of because I don't want anyone to get angry at you and I. But I'm reading the book, and it's a book about paleontology. And the guy that's written the book is so confident in his science. And by the way, I'm not one of these weirdo assholes that goes, oh, science is so full of crap, blah, blah, blah. Not at all. Listen, we learn a lot from me. Listen, we wouldn't be on the phone right now talking if it weren't for science. I have nothing but respect for science. But one of the things I like about science is that science changes as we learn more. But the one thing that we have not been able to do yet is travel back 65 million years ago to see what dinosaurs really look like. And so what happens is, and I will tell this story. So when I was working on Disney on that project you mentioned earlier, I was working with a physicist who was really a great, great guy. I loved him. And he was writing scientific papers while we were developing this product. And so one day I just asked him, I just said, hey, have you read any paleontological papers? And he smiled, and he went, yes, I have. I said, and what do you think? He goes, well, they use words like, or phrases like, we can assume, it appears, our best guess. He goes, and that's the best they can do. That's the best they can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I put it to this audience in Los Angeles. Why are you limiting yourself? Why? Do you know there was a time that some scientists were suggesting that Brachiosaurus actually had a trunk like an elephant? I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but there's as much evidence that supports that than what you saw in Jurassic Park. So my question is, why do we do this to ourselves? I agree with you. If I want reality, I'll open my front door. When I sit down in a movie, I want to be transported. But you are correct. I think there's such, people are so afraid of someone going, ugh, that looks fake. Well, listen, Logan's Run looks fake, but I still enjoy the movie because it's a good story.
Those
it's a
map
compelling
paintings.
story. Yeah. And well, the miniature at the beginning is like, yeesh. It's like, it should be in a Sears catalog for Christmas. But it's cool. But you know what? But what gets me is someone built it. And I know, Chris, we have had to have talked about Godzilla. We've had to have talked about Godzilla because someone asked me if I had seen the new Godzilla. I mean, and by the new Godzilla, I mean the one that was out a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. But I said no. And they were like, why not? And I went, why? And they went, well, what is that supposed to mean? And I said, well, I'll tell you. When I was a kid growing up, I had, Matchbox cars and Tonka trucks and, model kits and, planes and things. And like any good kid that grew up in, suburban Louisiana, you would invariably load them with fireworks and light them on fire and watch them explode in your backyard. And if you wanted to be a filmmaker, you filmed it with your Super 8 camera, only to be disappointed to see it, one frame, there it is, and the next frame, it's gone,
Mm-hmm.
You don't realize that, you're not shooting 200 frames a second. But Godzilla, to me, was the way it should have looked. Like, it was like but it was like a kid fantasy. It's like, wow, you build all these model kits, and then you get to light them on fire. And the best part is you put your friend in a lizard costume and you shoot Roman candles at him. It's like every kid's, you think, woo! It's like all the things that your parents tell you not to do, and then there you are doing it. It's like, wow, I can get my friend to put on this lizard costume. I'm going to set the whole thing on fire and then fire Roman candles at him. It's amazing. So you do all that digitally? What do I care? Like, I just don't care. Sorry.
And after an hour,
yeah, it's like
sitting
digital.
in front of a computer for that amount of time, it's not fun.
All the one of the things I talked to the University of Southern Mississippi recently was all of the digital collateral damage that you see in Marvel movies. It's like it all looks the same to me. And since 9/11, we've all seen what, buildings look like when they collapse in on themselves. And so now people have points of reference, that we didn't have that before, I mean, you can go to YouTube and you can type in tsunami and you can see what a real tsunami looks like. I mean, it doesn't look much like the Poseidon Adventure, but the Poseidon Adventure was cool. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what to say. It's just cool.
Well, and that's...
and
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, no.
No. Go ahead.
We're, again, and I know I've said this on a previous shows we've done, it's fun to see the artist's fingerprints in there as well. It's fun to look and go like, oh, I see how they created that, or, I see, I don't know. At this point, like I said, it's like, the newest Star Wars movies, you can see it's like someone's sitting in a spaceship window and the sun's coming through as they take off. And it's like, it looks just like it would look if you were shooting through a real airplane window. And that's not fun. And, I know that the Star Wars prequels aren't, popular with a lot of people. I enjoy them just because I see a combination of miniatures and digital, and I see that they weren't afraid to saturate it with all of these out of this world colors. They're having a battle in the atmosphere of a planet, and it's like purple and orange, and and these amazing colors. And no, it doesn't look real, but it looks fun. It looks bright. And so I just and a point about the dinosaurs too. My wife looks out at the birds on the lawn in our kitchen window and watches them, and she's like, "Wow, dinosaurs really did evolve into birds. You can see how they move just like dinosaurs." And I said, "Well, you say that, but they base the dinosaur moves off of watching birds. So
Exactly.
you're really kind of seeing it in reverse. And now you just accept, oh yeah, dinosaurs evolved into birds because look at, they move just like the raptors do in Jurassic Park." And she said, "Oh yeah, huh, that's so I mean, and that's fun stuff though. I mean, it's fun to take things and turn them into other things. But yeah, this quest for realism, like you said, the collateral damage in a Marvel movie, or the the quest to make everything look like Godzilla, like even the stories, like, oh, we've got to make the stories more, we have to justify Godzilla now. We have to justify what it would actually be like if Godzilla, how people would respond, and we have to, show all this human misery and yeah, exactly. It's like we want to see them fight, I
Exactly.
do want to see King Kong fight Godzilla. So I'm happy to, I heard that they are using practical suits in some of the, I don't know, they'll probably get all CGI'd over. I don't want to be cynical. But anyway,
you hear that time and time again. I saw something recently on social media. Someone had posted a photograph of that I had never seen before, of the Godzilla, the Roland Emmerich Godzilla robot that they had built, which was actually bigger than the T-Rex from Jurassic Park.
Oh wow!
And I was looking at it, going, "Wow, that is really something." And I heard that there's like maybe 2 or 3 shots of it in the movie. Like they really didn't use it that much, because once they got the digital Godzilla there, they just then it was running through the streets of Manhattan, but avoiding every building, and you're going, wait a minute, Godzilla runs through buildings, he doesn't run around. Godzilla never ran down the street. Godzilla was the street. He's like a mountain just kind of walking through. But regardless of that, I mean, it's great to see that stuff, and to me, I mean, we talk about this so many times, and I'm not trying to sound like an old man. I'm really not. And it's this is great. This is a great segue to talk about the future. But what gets me excited now is that where we don't see these things in cinema anymore, we're beginning to see them more in real life. Like, you see that people are building giant creatures and I mean, every now and then I have a friend who's in China, who will send me stuff from like the Chinese amusement parks there, and what they're doing, the Transformer suits that they make for the people to go out and meet the kids, they're really cool. They're like so totally, and they're giant. Like if I was like 5 years old and a Transformer fan, and I went to Universal, in I can't remember what it is, Shanghai or whatever, and this 12-foot robot walked out and said hi to me, I would lose it, and that's what gets me is that you see more of this, the King Kong musical where they build this giant Kong puppet, it's Walking with Dinosaurs, the live stage experience, How to Train Your Dragon, the live stage experience, more and more. And that's kind of what I helped develop for Disney. We developed, and I'm not saying anything that's, Disney, if you guys get angry with me, there's nothing I can tell you, because you guys talked about it. But I mean, we developed an acrobatic robot, and that acrobatic robot will start being put into parks, So, and to me, that's the future of creature animatronics. And it gets me excited, because I think people respond to it. They love it. They love it, which is a great segue to talk about one of the things. In fact, it's on my workbench right now. I literally ordered from Quickcrete. They have this stuff called Shapecrete. They say works like clay, hardens like concrete. well, I've welded up an armature of a dinosaur leg, and I'm going to try to sculpt a full-size dinosaur leg.
Oh, wow.
Now, it's a small dinosaur. Don't get excited. I'm not starting small, because this material, if it works, then I will be able to do big things, and I will be able to do them on my yard. I mean, imagine the kid that grew up in Louisiana playing with little plastic dinosaurs in his backyard gets to have full-size one in his adult yard. That, to me, that gets me excited. And I know people just love it. They like to see stuff with their own eyeballs. They just like to see it. And, I've had people tell me, oh, what about virtual reality? Virtual reality. And, and my response to that is it's fine, I guess, but the way I look at it is you're only getting two of your senses. You're getting sight and you're getting sound. You're not getting taste. You're not getting smell. You're not getting touch. So it's virtual reality is really not a reality. It's an enhanced 3D environment, which is not to say that there is not some cool stuff that you can do with virtual reality. I am not at liberty to discuss much about it, but one of the things that was developed for that project was a virtual reality interface. And to be able to walk around a mechanism as it's performing in real time so you can see how things are moving is pretty spectacular. That's pretty spectacular, as a tool. Now, but in terms of storytelling or, and I'm not a big video gamer. Sorry, folks. It's just not my thing.
Not my thing
last
either.
Video games. No, I think the last thing I played was probably Asteroids or something. I just, and to be honest with you, the only time I ever put on a, shall we say, game/story thing of virtual reality was some horror thing somebody wanted to show me, and I put the things on, and all I can say is it really made me uneasy. Like, I didn't go in and go, "Whoa, this is so cool." I put it on, and I went, "Okay, I'm freaked out. Like, I'm like a cat in a new house. It's like, what the heck is this? I don't like it. Where's the closet? I'm going to go hide in the towels, and I'll see you in a few days." And I think one of the reasons why is because especially with a horror film, if you're not, or a horror situation, if you're not looking around constantly, you're going to turn around and something will be right in your face.
Right.
And that's because, again, the characters in the virtual reality don't have to act the same way as they do in real life. And you can, what I'm saying? Like, when you go into a Halloween haunted house and, actors jump out at you, they're hidden behind walls and things and jump out at you, they still have to do it the way a human being would do it. Mm-hmm. In virtual reality, you can be looking at something, glance away, and come back, and it's right in your face. And you can go, "Oh, that's scarier." It's like, yeah, I know, but it's also easier. It's just there's no laws that you have to obey.
It takes away the discipline we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And if people, it worries me. Let's talk about a movie that I worked on years ago called Surrogates. Right now, I don't know if you've seen Surrogates. That's the Bruce Willis film about everyone's a robot.
Right.
And when I first read the screenplay, I thought it was really compelling because, to me, it was taking the idea of virtual reality to its worst level, because you have everyone sitting around at home and they're all strapped into these chairs, right? And meanwhile, their robot avatars, as you use your term, are out there interacting with each other. And of course, the whole point of the film is that, Bruce Willis, has his avatar is destroyed and he's in the middle of solving a case or something, so he has to actually in person go out amongst the robots. Well, early on, I thought it would have been cool that if Bruce walked out the door, and when he walked out the door, all the robots that were around him were just blanks. They were almost like those wooden drawing dummies
Mm-hmm.
walking around, because what they're being fed in their homes is a VR game, basically. So why would you spend all that money and time making clothes for everybody and making sure eyebrows are punched in and eyes are dilating and, moisture in mouths and all that stuff? Why would you do all that? Why wouldn't you just do that all? That's the digital interface.
Mm-hmm.
So when he walks out there, he's like freaked out because he's the only guy amongst this world of mannequins, basically. And then it was, in the script, it was really great. The moment where he, because throughout the script, they kept talking about the Outlanders, and, when you go out past this, you're out there in this dystopian version of the future and all this. And in the script, he like jumps the fence and he lands as like Norman Rockwellville. It's like, everyone's like, kids are playing frisbee and the guy's cutting his grass, and you're going like, wait. It threw me. It totally threw me. But all those things, which I thought could have really helped out that picture, of course, they were all not done, and they did what they did. But to me, that's what virtual reality is. That to me is what's dangerous about it. Is it does make people withdraw from human contact. And I do think that in this day and age of so much social media and so much, as we already touched on, presenting yourself to the world, that the more that you present this idealized version of yourself to the world, the less that you with all, warts and all, want to go out there. But to me, it's like, that's the beauty of life, that's what makes it so wonderful, is that, nothing is ideal. Everything is, beautiful and ugly, sad and happy, depressing and funny, all at the same time. It's life. And I can't recommend it enough. Go live life. I said to my students, I go, God, I had the greatest career of my life. The things I was able to do, the places I was able to see, the people I was able to meet in this life. Why do you want to sit in front of a computer for the rest of your life?
It's
wouldn't you rather be on a glacier? Wouldn't you rather be next to an active volcano? Wouldn't you rather be, in the middle of the Mediterranean Ocean? Wouldn't you rather be anywhere but in front of a computer?
I gotta tell you, the one of the best things I did for myself this year was I made a decision to not, I'm a big reader, but I hadn't read a book in a while, except maybe my kids at bedtime. And I decided I'm gonna start reading again, and I'm not going to read anything on my phone, that you can get your Kindle or whatever. It has to be a paper book. And I sit in the park every morning before my daughter goes to school. She likes to swing on the swing, and I sit and read while she does that. And I compared it to like when you're sick and dehydrated and you have to go to the hospital and get the fluids in you, the sensation of getting those fluids pumped back into you. You are completely free, and you realize that, and I'm not saying anything against electronic devices in terms of their usefulness, and I use computers in my work, and I enjoy the communication that it gives me with people that are not in my immediate vicinity, but just having the experience of being free from it, you realize it kind of, if you use it too much, it vamps from you. It takes something, and by interacting with real life, and even if it's just interacting with a book, the act of turning the page, when the wind blows, you feel the wind, and it becomes part of the story. It's funny. We're talking to people who are here for practical effects, and they're getting like life philosophy from us. But it does, folks. It does actually apply. This is part of it. You're engaging materials, and you're engaging real life, and you're engaging art, and these things all go into your toolbox.
Right, and the thing is that I guess I can close and say this. I can't recommend enough, and we've talked about this before, watching a Ray Harryhausen movie. And it doesn't even have to be Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, although I love Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. In fact, it's better if you watch a few of them one after the other, because Ray Harryhausen wasn't just a guy that built models and moved them around one frame at a time to create the illusion of movement. Ray Harryhausen is an actor, and the reason why his work withstands the time is because his performances are actually quite good. They're soulful, they're real, they feel, they move, they react, they look around, they're there. You believe it. You absolutely believe it. And that stuff comes from conversations like this, is that you have to look beyond, the next cool material that you can find. You have to look beyond the collateral damage that you do, whether it's with miniatures, which I always think is the best, or whether you do it digitally or whatever. You have to get to the soul of it. You have to, like you say, put your thumbprint on it. That's what it is, and it is connecting to your own humanity, and that is what really makes something special and something you can be proud of, is when you've connected with your humanity. And I sincerely believe that even though it can make people uncomfortable at times, people can sense when someone has done something from the heart. And they can sense when someone has done something for a paycheck. They can really sense it. And to me, even though there are times when you look at something that has been done for a paycheck and it's pretty amazing, but there's just some kind of connection, some visceral connection as human beings that you feel the presence of another soul. And to me, I think that's when the magic really happens. So, and that's me justifying this philosophical conversation for the past, 2 hours.
It does transcend. It does transcend technology, because technology always becomes dated. But Ray Harryhausen, it's like I'm a big fan of the Beatles. It doesn't matter. My daughter, who's 7 years old, she loves the Beatles. It doesn't matter to her that it's not new. She connects to it because it did come from a place of sincerity, and it came from people who, as well as being great artists, were great craftsmen. And I believe that if you dedicate yourself to, as you've put, working with your hands, the art comes through the craftsmanship, even if you're just doing it for a paycheck. If you are committed to and value the work you're doing, some of that will endure. So,
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well,
absolutely.
I think that's a great place to wrap up. We're not going to do a post show this time because poor Shannon has stuff he has to do. But we'll.
I'm afraid I gotta. I've got this steel armature, waiting for me, and I've put it off long enough. I got to get back to work. Which should be inspiration for everyone else to get back to work. I'm going back to work. You should go back to work.
Exactly. And I'm going to go back to work too. But stay on the line for just a moment after we wrap this show.
I will.
Because I want to say thank you. But all right, folks. So, have a great afternoon or evening or morning, whatever time you're listening, and be back here for another episode of The Practical People. Thank you.